How's it going, everybody? Let me check volume's good. And I clicked without getting set up. I wonder if I can do some mental gymnastics and sit here and talk to y'all at the same time while I'm setting up. Oops. And if I did that there, that means I got to do that there too. And in Daniel, we just got rid of Daniel 4, Nebuchadnezzar's calling. Hang on a quick second. Yes. So now we're going to get into Daniel chapter 5. And we did, to complete it, go one extra verse. So today we're only doing 7. So it's going to be 1 through 7 in Daniel. And we are going to start to really delve in the Olivet Discourse. And this is, it's a little difficult at first, as it's a little choppy. Like yesterday, is it talking about 70 AD or is it talking about the end times? And we showed how what we think is going on is 70 AD at first, and then it moves. Just watch yesterday's study. I can't really remember. This is 3 through 14. All right, so we're good. Let's see what's shaking. And he sat up on the Mount of Olives. The disciples came unto him privately, saying, "Tell us when these things be." Okay. Which we think was maybe talking about 70 AD at first. But then I want to show you how it shifts, how there's a change. Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another, everything that shall be thrown down. Matthew 24, 70 AD. Christ prophecy of 70 AD. That's Blue Letter Bible. If they're trying to tell you that all of chapter 24 is 70 AD, then of course they are hoodwinkers. They are evil. Has the abomination in Matthew been fulfilled yet in Korah? So you start to really get how there's a lot of hoodwinkers out there, or just people that are lost and they seriously are being honest, but they're just wrong. Did Jesus' second coming occur in 70 AD? Goodness gracious. What biblical prophecies were fulfilled in 70 AD? And this says Matthew 24:2. Thank you. Because I do think that that first part is. And that first part ends there. And Jesus never never answers the question about the stones being thrown down, because they get thrown down again at the end times. So Jesus gives them a prophecy about 70 AD when the temple was destroyed, and his disciples come to him for to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said, and see, the end times, the temple that's where the abomination of desolation takes place. And Jesus said unto them, see ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. And I was telling you, I'm pretty sure that's just 70 AD. And the disciples asked, and I better switch back over here. I'll do like I did the other day and run all the way through the whole study and do another 2 or 3 days in a row worth. Let's just stick with today's study. That ends at verse 14. And he sat upon the Mount of Olives. The disciples came unto him privately, saying, in other words, there was no multitude around them. There were no scribes and Pharisees. This is just one-on-one with his special elect disciples, saying, tell us when these things shall be, and what, now here's the important part, and you see I got it highlighted, and what shall be the sign of thy coming and the end of the world. So when is 70 AD going to happen? Of course, they don't know it's going to happen in 70 AD. And what shall it be like? What will the signs be that when you return? And what's it going to be like at the very end of times? So they asked, there's 2 question marks, and they asked 3 different things. 2 things layered in the second question because they are basically one and the same. But the other one is very different. And Jesus answered and said unto them, be careful, don't let anybody deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of, of wars and rumors of wars. So now he's getting into the end days, the end of times. This is the 4 horses. Ye shall hear of the red horse, which is war. And he's saying, be not troubled, because these things must take place, but it's not the very, very end times yet. So I just paraphrased it for you, but now let's read it in the King's English of the 1500s through the Greek. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. And then he's going to say, you're going to get war, big war. And that's going to cause famines. There's also going to be disease. There's going to be earthquakes all over. So let's read it. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. He could also say it this way. You're going to get the red horse. And then you're going to get the black horse, because red horse is war and black horse is famine. And he speaks to nation rising against nation, kingdom against kingdom. And he says, there shall be famines and pestilences. And I just showed that at Revelation, on my Facebook. Sword. Let's go. Sword, famine, pestilences. Sword, famine, pestilence. Which is exactly what he just told you. He gave you war, he gave you famine, and he gave you pestilence. And I listen to the Bible, and right now it's the second time when I eat, I listen, especially because I pick up on stuff in the Old Testament. Then it'll eventually run through the New, which I know pretty good, but it's always still good to hear. I'll tell you that I know the New Testament better than anybody you've ever been in contact with or that you can find on the internet. That's why I'm writing books about it all now. But when you get over here to filter, 15 times you have war, famine, and pestilence in the book of Jeremiah. 15 times. And it doesn't even begin until Jeremiah 14. And it's 21, 21, 24, 27, 27, Jeremiah 29, 29, 32, 32, 34, 38, 42, 42, 44. Let's read the last one. For I will punish them that dwell in the land of Egypt, as I have punished Jerusalem by the sword, by the famine, and by the pestilence. And Jesus just told you that's what's coming. And the 4 horses in Revelation 6 clearly states red horse war, clearly states black horse famine. Then when it gets to the pale horse, talks about the death, and it says due to the war and the famine. And then goes on to say, and by the beast of the earth, which I think gets into the abomination of desolation. But I think animals are also possessed and entered. I think they showed us that with the movie The Taming of the Shrews, or The Killer Shrews. What was that called? And of course, Jesus showed the demons entering into the swine when he cast out the demons from the humans, from the sheep. So what Jesus is saying is red horse, then black horse, and then through that time frame, you're going to get pestilence. There's going to be illness, I think, from the technology that's on every street corner is going to get cranked up like it's never been before. And there's going to be earthquakes. So there's going to be signs, okay? And then Jesus goes on to say, all these are the beginnings or the beginning of sorrows. Because what these things are is you're now living in the end times book of Revelation in real time, which is what the TV show Real Time with Bill Maher is about. You're in the book of Revelation in real time. You're a character in the book. You are in the book. You're there. You're living in it. Like people that were in Egypt during the plagues, they were living in the Old Testament in real time. They were in an Old Testament story. Well, the New Testament is loaded with stories. Now, the Old Testament goes through different histories of centuries and centuries and centuries. But, you know, the New Testament is just over a very short period of time until you get to the end. And then you're at the very end times. So, you know, to be a character in the New Testament, you had to be in the days of Jesus or the days of the apostles, which Paul counts himself one of because he spoke to Jesus directly. And then you skip all the way over and get to the end times. And when the Antichrist receives his deadly wound to the right eye, you're living in the book of Revelation in real time. All these things are the beginning of sorrows. Then shall they deliver you, talking about sheep. Who's the you? Well, that would be sheep. To be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And I think now you're getting into abstract okay. Yeah. I just wanted to look ahead a little bit to get the context. So I think this was during just the four horses, and they shall kill you, and you shall be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And so known sheep might have an issue. I don't think that's also talking about the Great Tribulation in abstract speech. But it's possible. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. And see, I think this could be figurative language about the mark of the beast, but maybe not. And it says, many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, which would be the sheep, that same shall be saved. So you are going all the way through the Great Tribulation at that point. So yes, I think a lot of that was figurative language about the mark of the beast when the goats are possessed and they start killing sheep. very abstract, and very much figurative language, metaphoric. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then the end shall come, which is the very end of God's wrath. When is that gospel preached? It is preached in Revelation 14 by an angel. I think it's 14. Okay, here it is. And I saw an angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach. That's an angel. And the gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, then the end shall come. Now that's the end of God's wrath. The end shall come. There's time no longer. There is time no longer. Bible verse, Revelation.
According to LinkedIn, when the seventh angel blows the seventh trumpet, one of the things that will happen is the messenger angel will proclaim that there will be no more time.
So, when the seventh angel blows the seventh trumpet, and that's when we're all changed. That's when God has removes his church. One of the things that will happen, it says, is the messenger angel will proclaim that there will be no more time. But before there's no more time, the angel an angel does come and preach the gospel. And here it is right here. And another angel flying in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach to them that dwell on the earth. Those are the goats. Goats are referred to as earth dwellers. And to every nation and kindred and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come. And worship him that made heaven and earth and the sea and the fountains of the waters. And there followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city. And we know in Revelation 11:8, that great city of Babylon, it says where our Lord was crucified. There's only one great city in the book of Revelation. And one verse does say where our Lord was crucified. And their dead bodies shall lie in the streets of the great city, which is now spiritually Sodom and Egypt, where our Lord was crucified. That great city is where our Lord was crucified. We know who that is. We know where that is. It's where the Antichrist declares himself to be God, known as at the abomination of desolation. So there's that. So this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations. Well, it's preached by an angel, isn't it? And then the end shall come. Yes. And we just read that too. All right, let's get into Daniel chapter 5. Belshazzar, not Belteshazzar, which was Daniel's nickname given to him by the world of Babylon. But the king, Belshazzar, the king, made a great feast to 1,000 of his lords and drank wine before the 1,000. Belshazzar, whiles he tasted the wine, commanded to bring the golden. My goodness gracious, what are we going to get into? Are we going to get all the way there today? We are. The fact that I'm reading this today gives me pause. Because I always wondered if at the end would something match up in our Bible study the day before. And we're getting close to this eclipse. And so on the eve of the 6th, we're getting the writing on the wall. Are we at the time of the writing on the wall at this book of Revelation? And we are going to be living in the book of Revelation and in the book of Daniel in real time. I don't know. Anyway, the king made a great feast to 1,000 of his lords and drank wine before the 1,000. Belshazzar, while he tasted the wine, commanded to bring the golden and silver vessels which his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken out of the temple, which was in Jerusalem, that the king and his princes and his wives and concubines might drink therein. So it was put into his heart by an evil spirit, of course, as he's drinking the wine, to say, you know what? This wine's going to taste even better if I drink it out of the cups that we brought from the land of Israel when we took them captive, which is like a middle finger to our God. And let me see, taken out of the temple, which is okay. All right. And of course, Nebuchadnezzar ended up being called in the previous chapter. We just read that. He was a sheep. And he also, when he took Israel captive, Israel had jailed the prophet Jeremiah, which I just learned while listening to the Bible while I eat. And Nebuchadnezzar freed him. So Nebuchadnezzar always was doing God's work, even though he was still, the king of Babylon and not doing things properly at all or have the proper mindset until the end of Daniel 4, when he was called by the Lord. So, and concubines, by the way, are like lovers, but they're not wives. So when it says the king and his prince, so it would be his son and his wives, king's wives or the prince's wives. I don't know, probably both. And his concubines, I would say it's the king's son and the king's wives and the king's concubines. I would imagine concubines are women that have not gotten pregnant, so they have not become wives. But, the king would have sex with all of them. A king would have sex with all the concubines. Did King Solomon sleep with all 700 wives and 300 concubines? Would a king have sex with a concubine? Concubinage is a formal institutionalized practice in China. What is a concubine? Bible meaning. Let's go ahead and read that. What is a concubine? Why did God allow concubines in the Bible? In the Bible, a concubine was a woman acquired by a man as a secondary wife. So you're having relations with her, but she's not a wife. Her purpose was to provide a male heir in the case of a barren wife. Oh, well, I'm glad we're reading this. To provide more children in general, to enhance the family's workforce and wealth, and to satisfy the man's sexual desires. A concubine was endowed with rights and protections by Hebrew law, but was not equal in the status to a wife. Okay. I like it. I just learned something new, which is why we poke around a little bit on the old internet of things, huh? Can't always trust the internet, so you'd want to always run that by 2 and 3 sources. But I was also told this before by an old Bible study instructor who was teaching free will and all that at the time, as we all believed, but still, we learned a lot. So his wives and his concubines might drink therein, and they brought the golden vessels that were taken out of the temple house of God, which was at Jerusalem, and the king and his princes and his wives and his concubines drank in them. They drank wine and praised the gods of gold and of silver and of brass and of iron and of stone. In that same hour, came forth fingers of a man's hand and wrote over the candlestick upon the plaster of the wall in the king's palace. And the king saw the part of the hand that wrote. So if I can straighten that out for you in the King's English of the 1500s, and the king saw what the hand wrote on the wall. This is where thank you thing from the Addams Family comes from, the hand. Then the king's countenance was changed. So the look on his face changed, and his thoughts troubled him to the point that his joints of his loins were loosed, and his knees smote one against another. Then cried aloud to bring in the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers. And the king spake and said to the wise men of Babylon, whosoever shall read this writing and show me the interpretation thereof shall be clothed with scarlet and have a chain of gold about his neck, and shall be third ruler in the kingdom. Well, we are getting into the writing on the wall, which you never know if the Lord is telling us something as we are reading that at this particular time. So always keep an open mind for that. I'm glad y'all are here. I love you very much. Ask questions anytime. That's what I'm here for.